This week has been a wild session of taking apart this '89 Cabriolet. Kind of a sad story, but I'm learning a lot taking it apart. I left the hood, the top, and the windshield in on purpose because this is now an outside car, and those items kind of support the car cover from just dipping in and having water drip through it. It's not really waterproof, so I just leave those on for now. But the car is mostly taken apart. I also left the wheels and suspension on so I can get it in and out of the garage. That's probably the last thing I'll take apart. So I think I'm gonna sell just the tub by itself, no suspension, no nothing. And I didn't have to go to that level of parting it out, but it does make financial sense to do so. We've got about, I had a helper, Ian was here. I think we got about 15 hours so far, and that includes removing the transmission, the engine, basically as you see it now. And I think the hardest part's already over. I'm just amazed how much stuff they packed in this car. This is the 1989, it's the last of the G-Body series. And they just kept adding stuff. And people wonder why these things are so heavy. Well, I know now why they're so heavy. There's just loads and loads of gizmos on this thing. Everything's a mess in here, but this is the transmission, the G50, and it's standing right next to my 915 mag transmission. And it's hard to describe in video, but this is about half of the weight of that. The mag transmission, it's not fully assembled, no oil in it, but I can pick that up pretty easily. This one, I can't pick up that easily by myself. It's really a two-person job. The seats are super heavy. The power seats, the comfort seats that have the recline mechanism are substantially heavier than what's in Mac. The doors are extremely heavy. They have crash protection in them. They have power everything, the window regulators, the motor, everything about the doors were remarkably heavy. The wiring in this car alone is like, some cases it's like almost 2 inches thick of just bundles of wire. There's the alarm system that just, the modules aren't that heavy, but like I said, the wiring that runs in and out of the doors and in and out of the dash is just adds up. And that stuff, you know, even though the chassis is roughly the same since 1974, it's the added gizmos that these cars had, and that just taking it apart is really eye-opening to see what they put in these things. This is the G50 shifter, and it's just really stout, real thick heavy bars, cast pieces down here. This part's aluminum, but this stuff just really adds up in weight. This is the shift rod for the G50, and while it's hollow in the middle, the end is solid, and they put this insulation on it to try to, I think, minimize vibration from being transmitted up the tunnel into the shifter. So, like I said, this is the final evolution. They thought of everything when this car was built. The steering wheel is remarkably heavy. This is almost 6 pounds. This is the Momo from Mac. It's about 3.5 pounds. So, you know, I think even though it's a larger diameter, I think they really wanted to, you know, make it feel more solid, and this certainly does that. The gas tank is quite a bit bigger. It holds 22 gallons. It's bigger than what's in Mac, but the gas tank itself is pretty heavy. Disassembly is not as easy as assembly. I think the factory put this car together in a certain sequence that made sense. A lot of the items that I removed seem like they were designed easy to go in, but difficult to come out. So one example is the fasten seatbelt brake warning indicator on the dashboard. That required me to remove almost all the air conditioning and vent system underneath the dash to be able to use 4 independent screwdrivers behind there and pry on them all simultaneously behind a rubber boot just to get that fasten seatbelt off without breaking it. Really tough. This is a dash vent, for example, and it has these tabs on it. So going in this direction is pretty simple, but to compress those tabs to push it out the other direction when you can't see them is pretty difficult. One thing you can do is to look at this part. You know, this can be on eBay, for example. That's where I'm probably going to sell this piece. And you can look at where the tabs are. So when you can see the part already removed, you can kind of look and see where you need to squeeze or compress and how to pry it out, because these are not easy to take out without breaking them. And order of operations is important because it's probably like the center vent is a little easier to remove after you've taken the whole dash out. But it would have been easier to take the dash out if the windshield was already out. But like I said earlier, I need the windshield to stay in so it doesn't just get water inside the car. So it's a learning experience. Some of you are wondering, is this even worth it? And it is work, I'm not gonna lie. In addition to the removal process, you have listing, you have shipping, you have inquiries. That adds up. But financially, this is how I'm paying for the new silver car. That's essentially a free car. Obviously, I got an insurance payment for this one. That covered what I paid for it. But all these parts that I'm selling basically will easily pay for the silver car, which I showed you guys last week. I'm sorry I don't have any video footage of me kind of struggling, and Ian was here too, struggling getting that off. One of the most difficult things we did was removing the driver's side fender. It had never been removed before, and it was essentially glued on. They have seam sealer in that bond area between the tub and the fender. There's not really a butyl tape line there in this year, but there was so much seam sealer. We had to heat it. We had to use razor blades. We had to use penetrating oil to just soften up the rubber, and finally we're able to pry it free. But I think Ian and I, two people, spent almost 2 hours, hour and a half, getting all the bolts out, getting all the fastening seam sealer to loosen up, pry it off. So a lot of work. So if there's anything that you need for your project at home, or you see something on this car that you're like, oh, that one's in better shape than mine, just reach out to me with my email. I'll put my email up here, and I'll try to help you guys out. It might take me a week or two to get back to you, as I'm dealing with tons and tons of inquiries about the parts on this car. You know, don't ask for any of the G50 stuff. All that highly desirable stuff has already been sold. But some of the small trinket items are certainly still available. So reach out. If you need glass, or you need handles or knobs, things like that would be a good thing that's easy to ship as well. The sooner we can get this one gone, the sooner we can go back to resuming on the 356 Mac, and also some of the repairs needed for the new cab, which is silver. So thanks guys for watching. Thanks for bearing with me, and we'll see you guys hopefully next week. Probably a transmission video next week. I did get some new tooling that's going to help do the selector forks. It looks really good.